You're curious about moving to Spain, maybe for half a year or a year, but you wouldn't go and buy a house or an apartment in Spain, you would rent. Which raises the question, how the hell do you find a place in Spain without getting scammed, ripped off, ending up somewhere that you don't want to be in, or just losing your mind?
So today we're going to answer that question, how to rent your dream home in Spain. Venga, let's go. So we've rented about 4 places in Madrid, well, exactly four places in Madrid over the last 10 years. And we have really learned the ins and outs of how to find a great place, how to rent a great place, what to watch out for. But when I say we, I really mean Yoli. Yoli is the expert here. She has found all these amazing places. And to help you out, we've put together a renting in Spain cheat sheet, which you can access by clicking the link in the description below to download it. It goes into a little more detail, has some links and things that we're not going to get into in this video.
So we're going to take you through the process step by step, from figuring out your budget to actually moving out of the place when you're ready to move.
And you can check also the timestamps below so you can click through and navigate around the video. All right, let's kick off with number 1.
Right, so number 1, budget and location. So these two really go hand in hand, right? For the budget, you need to figure out how much you can pay monthly, right? I mean, it makes sense. We'll go over the ongoing costs as well a little bit later on. But first, let me tell you that to figure out your budget, you need to take into account a few initial payments, right? To move in. So what are those? At least 2 months rent, that's for your current month, and for the fianza. The fianza is the deposit you're gonna be paying as a guarantee to the landlord, right? Those 2 months sometimes become 3 because you're also paying the agency, right? The real estate agency, they usually will charge you as the tenant 1 month for, well, helping you find that place.
And in terms of the budget, obviously that really depends on the kind of place you're going to rent and where you're renting. So we've got some statistics here that we've gathered. The 3 most expensive places to rent in Spain are Madrid, Catalonia, and the Balearic Islands. Those are the 3 regions that are most expensive.
Can you say that again?
Los Baleares.
Las Baleares. Oh, la la.
We'll do another video on language soon. So we gathered a few prices for places that are in other parts of Spain that you might be interested in moving into, and I've got those here. So for example, if you wanted to move into rural Spain, what about Grazalema in Cádiz, a beautiful village? That's where you'd want to move to, right? Well, for a 3-bedroom house, you would pay 400 euros a month. For a 3-bedroom, 2-story house in gorgeous Cambados, Pontevedra, which is in Galicia, you're going to pay 450 euros per month. Or for a 4-bedroom apartment in Catalonia, Alt Empordà, which is a more
very lovely area.
Lovely. 750 euros a month, so getting up there. And a 3-bedroom apartment in rural Cáceres, you remember from a recent video, about 300 a month. So that'll give you an indication. And also here's the thing, in our video about how to buy a house, we talked a lot about the negotiation side. It's a big part of that and a big part of Spanish culture, but it's not the same when you're renting.
No.
Generally, you can't negotiate a rental price, particularly if it's a place that's in demand, it's going to go for that price. So there's not as much flexibility. So don't bowl in there and be like, I'm going to offer you 20% less. It doesn't
be like, ciao.
I mean, I guess it could happen, but it doesn't quite work like that.
So number 2, the timeline. How long does it take to rent a place? It can take you a week or it can take you months. Once you find your ideal place though, it's a very fast market, so you need to move quickly. It can just go in a matter of hours. But finding an ideal place may take you months, especially if your budget is quite tight and you want to maximize it. It took us a year to find our last place, for example. And that's because we wanted a terraza, a terrace, of course. And so that takes a long time because we couldn't really afford a terrace.
Okay, number 3, where do you look for a rental property? Well, obviously the most obvious place to start is online, and the biggest website is idealista.es. I think .com might work as well. And so that is the place that we've always found places. Now, when you go on there, you're going to want to filter. So you can filter for everything, for terrazas, terraces, pets, rooms, things like that. Just one tip when you're on Idealista, don't over filter, because the way people list them aren't necessarily super precise. So you might be listing for, terrazas and it has to have a terraza. And then there might be a place that actually has a terraza, but it hasn't listed as a terraza. So be a little careful there and be a bit broader. The other thing is, instead of just searching for neighborhoods, you can actually draw a line around certain parts so that the places that you're looking for are within that. And I suggest doing that. The other thing, remember, is good places go fast, like Yoli was saying. So set up the alerts. Now, I remember lying in bed when we were looking for one of our last places, and we looked for a year for that place. But Yoli had all the alerts set up, and she would get an email first thing in the morning, and she'd be like, we're going to see this place today. And we would go, and I think the last place we lived in, which was great, and it had that famous terrace, we were there early, and we were one of the first people to look at it. So set up those alerts, and it kind of rules your life for a little bit, but that's okay. Well, whatever. The other thing is you can filter so that agencies are listed or not listed. And that's up to you. Remember that if you do rent through an agency, you're going to have to pay that extra, that third month, or that extra amount, which is equivalent of 1 month's rent, to them. So it's cheaper if you don't go through them. But maybe they've got the place that you need, and that's a little bit of the trade-off. Other websites that are common apart from Idealista, there's Fotocasa as well, which is kind of like the not so popular version of Idealista. There's a lot of rental properties in both places. I would just stick with Idealista, to be honest, unless you have all the time in the world. There's also a couple more, which are, what are they called, Yoli? Trovi.com and Pisos.com. I've never even seen those. You could check those out as well. There are other ones. But here's something important as well, scams. So you have to watch out for places that look too good to be true. I remember seeing places that Yoli would show me, and it would show this beautiful, incredible place for such a reasonable price. And what it means is that you would send them a message and say, hey, I'm interested. And then they'll tell you some story, which is that the person who's renting it lives outside of, Madrid or Barcelona, and has to come in to the city to show it to you, and can you pay their travel costs? Now look, I don't think anybody watching Spain Revealed is going to fall for that. We're a smart bunch here, but just be careful. I don't think there's so much of that going on around these days. I think Idealista and that have it pretty much under control. But if it's too good to be true, like anything in life, it probably is. All right, next up, real estate agencies, the other method. I'm going to hand this over to Yoli. This is her area of expertise.
Right. So real estate agencies is my favorite subject. So a really good thing about real estate agencies is that they can help you if there are language barriers. Maybe you can go and physically visit the offices of the real estate agencies that are in the neighborhood that you're interested in. And they will give you a good idea about the price and the budget that you need really for that area. But one difference in Spain is that in other places that we've lived, like in New Zealand, the real estate agent would be in charge while you were living there after signing the contract of organizing maintenance services or liaising with the landlord. But not here in Spain. In Spain, what they do is they show you the place, then they draft the lease contract, and that's kind of it. They arrange the appointment with the landlord to sign it, and then ciao, they're gone.
All right.
Right, so number 4, the visit. Now, chances are that you are going to be visiting a few places, and you will get better and better at asking the right questions. We put together 11 questions that you should ask whenever you visit a place. So question number 1, what's included in the price, in the money you're gonna be paying monthly? Sometimes the heating might be included because it's part of the comunidad of the expenses that the landlord pays for. Usually the water or electricity, those won't be included, but sometimes the heating might be. So just make sure you check.
Number 2 is check the terms of the lease around duration. So here's the thing, is that leases by default are 1 year in duration, and they can renew up to 5 years. But the parties can contract differently from that. So here's how it works on both terms, is that if you move into a place, you are allowed to leave with 1 month's notice in writing after the first 6 months. But during that 5 years, as it automatically renews, the landlord can't kick you out unless they show that they need to use the property, they need to move in, or of course you breach the terms and destroy the place or something like that. The other thing that's important to know is the landlord cannot just dramatically increase the rent during that 5-year period. So they can increase the rent by the amount of inflation more or less each year, but they can't just suddenly knock on 300 euros. So that happened to us in our last rental property. Is the law actually used to be 3 years, not 5, and each year they would knock it up. It would go up, what, 10 euros or something like that?
Very few really. Yeah.
And then after 3 years, suddenly they wanted to put the rent up 400 euros. So we had to negotiate and find a balance there. That was the case in point of how that works.
Question number 3. Are the landlords planning to depositar la fianza? Now, the fianza is the deposit that you pay as a guarantee, and what they need to do by law is to submit this money to take it to a regional agency. This you need to do by law, and it shows goodwill. It shows that the landlords are planning to actually pay tax on the money they're getting for the rent, and it just generally is a good sign.
Because does it happen, Yoli, that sometimes the landlord will just keep that deposit in their bank account?
Yeah, absolutely, and just don't say anything to the authorities, and it's kind of smelly.
Okay, number 4 of the questions you need to ask. Find out what the heating system is, because it can affect how much you will pay, more or less. So there's broadly 2 types of heating in Spain. There's gas and there's electric. But within gas, there's 2 kind of sub-branches. There's central heating, whereby there's a boiler that serves the entire building, and then there's a boiler that is just individual to each apartment. So when the boiler kind of serves the whole building, which is a little bit more the old school way, sometimes actually your heating will be included in your rent.
Yeah, and everyone's the same, right? In the building.
It doesn't matter what you use. And sometimes that'll be included in the comunidad, which means that is what the landlord pays, the kind of the building costs. But by 2023, that form of heating will actually be phased out and will go to individual gas heating, which means you pay for what you use, which in our experience, that happened in our last place. We started paying more, right?
Twice, 3 times, 4 times.
So we think it's a bit of a trick, actually, to get everyone to pay more. But anyway, that's probably another story. The other thing is electric heating. I don't think we've ever had that, right?
No, but usually it's more expensive. So yeah, make sure that you actually ask about an average price. Like the last sentence, what did they used to pay every month? That's always a good guidance.
Totally.
Question number 5. Are the suministros, the supplies, the electricity activated, dados de alta? Make sure they are, because it can be quite expensive to dar de alta the electricity, for example, up to 200 euros. Now the internet won't be activated, you will need to do that, but that internet companies do it for free, so it's not a biggie. We use, by the way, Pepephone, and we pay 60 euros per month, and it's pretty good.
And that's for fiber optic, but that also includes 2 mobile phones as well, contracts. So that's a pretty good deal. Pepephone we've been happy with. So the next one is pets, number 6. We've had a lot of questions come in, like what if we have pets? What if we want to bring pets? So when you're searching on Idealista, you can filter for pets. If pets are not allowed, the landlord doesn't want pets, they have to have that in the contract. If they don't have that in the contract, that pets are not allowed, you can have pets. So just kind of keep clear on that.
Question number 7. Does it come furnished? Now, a lot of places in Spain do come furnished, right? This is because usually places that are for rent used to be family homes. And this is a bit tricky because sometimes the landlords might not understand that you don't want those really dark curtains in your lounge.
God. The places we have seen and they're renting and suddenly grandma's huge furniture with all the crystal and family photos are still there, ornate and
Now, I mean, things are changing now and places tend to be furnished, but just with the basics.
Number 8, the internet situation. We touched on it before, but just double check that there's fiber optic in the apartment, in the building.
If you want fiber optic.
That's true.
Maybe you don't want internet at all.
That is true. Maybe you're going new age and you're disconnected. So you're living the Spanish lifestyle. But generally, if a house isn't set up or an apartment isn't set up for fiber optic, if the building is, they just need to wire it through and they'll do it for free, the internet company. I guess be extra aware though if you're moving into a more rural area. For example, where Yoli's parents have a holiday home, there is no fiber optic in that area, although it's coming. So that would mean that you would have to explore other options, whether just using your data or
satellite internet.
Exactly.
What's the neighborhood like? So make sure that you have a look around. Make sure that you see locals around. What's downstairs? What's opposite? There might be a really noisy bar downstairs. So just make sure that you check out the area and also talk to the neighbors. That also helps if you can talk to them.
And I was thinking a good opportunity also to maybe visit at different times, particularly if you see that there is maybe a bar or it's a vibrant part of the city. Swing by in the evening and just see what the ambient noise is like. I think that's a really important idea because places can, streets can change from daytime to evening.
Oh, I think that's important. Massively.
And number 10, which is not so much a question, but more of an attitude and an approach, and this is something that Yoli taught me, is establish a personal relationship with the person who's showing you the house or the apartment if you really like it, particularly if it's the owner. This is a country of personal relationships. That's really, really important. So if you're majo or maja, friendly, I think they're more likely to trust you or just feel kind of goodwill towards you. So go in with a smile. Don't go in all business-like because they might get a bit scared and think, oh, this person's going to be a bit intense. I don't want them in my house. They're going to be God knows what. So
hit a balance of like friendliness and also, of course, seriousness, but hit a balance. Just try to be friendly, but also upfront about things.
Exactly.
So number 11, and this is more a piece of advice than a question. If you like the place, go for it. Even have some cash on you that you can just Yeah. Do you accept cash? Maybe you have some cash to give as a guarantee that you are serious, that you want that place.
And that cash isn't like a bribe, right? That would go.
No. So yeah, make sure you have a receipt. You know, it's just like, I'm serious about it. It's gonna be part of the monthly rent that you are going to pay. Make sure you get a receipt. Also have with you ID cards, a copy of your identity card, and even pay slips or just any proof of income, just to give a guarantee, just to give a security to the landlords, because that's what they're really looking for. It's like, okay, you're all very nice, that's all that I can see, but do you have money? Can you pay the rent every single month, right? So good places, they just go so quickly like that, especially in places where there's a lot of pressure like Madrid or Barcelona.
And that actually happened to us when we were looking for our last place. We visited a place, we really liked it, and I was not 100% sure, so Yoli had all the ID and all the pay slips and everything, and I was like, let's just take a walk around the block. We took a walk around the block and
10 minutes.
We lost the place. So obviously that's Madrid. It was an in-demand place. It had a great terrace. So when it comes to signing the agreement, generally that's going to be written up by the landlord themselves or by the real estate agent. And so if they try and put in clauses that are abusive and go against the law, just keep in mind that those clauses will not be accepted by the law. The law kind of overrides them. So I want to give you a few examples of potentially abusive clauses that would be void. But before we get into that, one thing that is open to negotiation is actually that fianza, that deposit. So Yoli mentioned, it's really common to pay 1 month's rent in advance and then 1 month fianza. They could put 3 months fianza, 3 months deposit if it was a really nice place and they wanted to really be protected. I don't think you're going to see that as much because obviously they have to make it attractive to people to rent.
Anymore, yeah.
But just to be aware, you could always negotiate that down potentially, but you might see more. I mean, if someone's asking for like 6 months, and there used to be old kind of guarantees that used to happen called avals, but those don't happen so much anymore. So just be aware of that. In terms of the potentially abusive clauses, remember that after 6 months, you only need to give 1 month's notice in writing to leave. And by writing, we mean email. You don't have to send like a letter or something like that. So there's a clause that says you can't leave during the first year, 2 years, that's going to be void. The other thing is about the price increases. If the contract says that the landlord will review the price to market value after 1 year or something like that, remember, they can't do that only by inflation until the end of the 5-year renewal period. Another clause is one that might say that the tenant has to pay for all maintenance and everything like that. Now, Yoli will touch on this next, but really, the landlords have to pay for something that needs to be fixed, like in other parts of the world, but you're in charge of just kind of general, changing the light bulbs, general kind of upkeep and things like that. So if they suddenly say that you're in charge of all maintenance, that would be void as well. The other thing that's really important that I suggest you do, and it's not required by law, is sign an inventario, an inventory. So that's just a list of everything that's in the house when you rent it. We found that in our last place when we were moving out. We went through with the owner, we went through the inventory. It's like, yes, that's there, that's there. It's easy to forget, particularly if it's been a year, 2 years, and we're like, I remember a conversation like, was there a
table?
Yeah. Check it. And I would suggest taking photos maybe videos as well, to just have it all secure like anywhere else in the world, so there's no misunderstanding when you're moving out about how things were or what there was.
Totally.
So apart from that, you sign that rental agreement, you pay your month in advance, you pay your fianza, and you're ready to move in. You get the keys.
Oh, got a bit nippy there.
Not for me, strong Kiwi.
Okay, so what are the ongoing costs once you've moved in your place? So first of all, you need to make sure the electricity and or the gas are under your name from the day you move in, right? So what you need to do is the landlord will probably provide you with a company name that is supplying the water or the electricity. You just give them a call with your CUPS number, which is the identity card of your electricity or gas supply, and just provide that and they will change the name so that it's under your name. So I've got here noted down how much we used to pay for electricity, water, and so forth. So let me tell you, for electricity, we used to pay in our last place about 35 euros a month. You can pay up to 50 euros a month.
And that wasn't for heating.
And that was not for heating because our heating was central heating in the building. So yeah, just electricity like that, 30 to 50 euros more or less. Of course, if your heating is electrical, you're going to be paying much more than that in the cold months. Now the heating, of course, it depends on where you live. If you live in a cold region or how well insulated the house is, right? For us, we used to pay around 100 euros, 150 euros a month in the cold months. Of course, in summer, you don't pay for heating. Now the water, we more or less pay between 20 to 30 euros per month. That's of course if you don't have like a massive garden or something like that. And then the internet plus the phone, right? It usually comes together also here in Spain. You can find deals that range from like 30 euros a month to 70 euros a month, even 150 euros a month if you have the TV with it as well, right? Like Netflix and things like that. We've never had a TV, but that can be the case as well.
And I think something important about the internet is we chose not to get a phone line. So we have our 2 mobile phones and our fiber optic, 60 euros, and we chose not to have a phone line because it was just your mother who called on it.
Yeah, exactly. My mom and just spammers, so.
Yeah, Yoli's mother and spammers. But now you do speak to your mother, but just on the mobile.
Exactly, so that's way easier now.
All right, so your time in that apartment is done. You're moving out and you're moving on. So there's 4 things that you need to keep in mind when you're going to move out of an apartment. What's the first one, Yoli?
The first one is the notice. So you need to give 1 month's notice in writing, right? Actually, make sure that all communications with the landlords are done by email in writing from the beginning.
So number 2 is make sure all the bills are paid up. And so, and you need to close off your accounts with the electricity, with the internet and things like that. So make sure they're all paid up and then give each of them a call and find out what the process is to kind of close things off, because each might have a slightly different process. It's usually very easy though.
Next thing you need to make sure is that you fix everything. So I'm not talking about light bulbs here this time. I'm talking about anything that actually broke. You need to fix it. And this will help also get the fianza money back when you leave.
And then the last step is to meet with the landlord at the place and go through that inventory that you did and check that everything's okay and get them to sign off that they're going to give you back the full fianza, the full deposit. And that's really the last step, right?
Yeah.
Now, we should just mention the fianza deposit because there is a little bit of a culture now and again of landlords misunderstanding what the deposit is actually for.
Yeah.
That fianza is for unpaid utility bills or things that you broke as a tenant that need to be fixed or unpaid rent, right?
No more.
It is not for wear and tear. If they're like, it needs a bit of a paint, I'm going to take that out of fianza. And it's not for light bulbs. That's wear and tear, like if the place needs a bit of a paint. Now, obviously, if you have spray painted the walls, that's not wear and tear. And so it would be included in that.
That would be negligence. So you will be paying for that.
So generally, we've found a little bit, it's been okay with our landlords, but it can get a little bit slippery, the understanding of what that is. So just be really specific and really clear about what the fianza is for, and you'll get it back as long as you've looked after the place. So guys, good luck on your rental journey. Remember to click the link below in the description to download that rentals cheat sheet to get all the information a little bit more in depth about what we've talked about. And also click these videos that are appearing somewhere on the screen
here.
that if you're moving to Spain will really set you on the right path for understanding the culture of this wonderful country. And apart from that,
Yeah, well, that's it.
hasta
Suerte.
luego. Happy renting. Ciao.